Good morning, everyone. We're here with Liz Cross with another probe about some interesting topics as usual. How are you doing this morning, Liz?
Oh, very well. Of course, this is a favorite topic of mine. I can't wait to hear your questions.
Yeah, this is a favorite topic of yours, and I have to say, like, just out of the gate, like, I've always been interested in alternative topics and different things. But you know what? For some reason, like Sasquatch, it always was never at the top of my list of things to be interested in. It always kind of faded a little bit. But recently with the probes that we've done, and listening to your stories as well, I'm like, I'm having interest in it, and it's like I think we had a couple of videos where we talked about it. And so I wanted to do a probe and see where it goes because we got some interesting information.
Oh, yeah,
So
absolutely. Can I just say your plane video was amazeballs because we had a pilot contact us and ask me questions about stuff he had actually seen. I'm going to say hi to him now because I know he's listening. And I love the fact that he asked those questions about strange things that he had seen in the night whilst flying for a commercial airline. So thank you.
wow, well maybe he'll have some questions and we can probe them if he's had
Yeah.
some. So yeah, so that video we got somehow, I don't even remember how Sasquatch came in, seemed to come into it. I think it's because of the orbs. And then we did a video for others I would encourage to check out, which was Ancient Civilizations and oh my God, Graham Hancock. That's what it was. And we learned quite a bit in that video. Again, it wasn't part of the topic, but it seemed to sneak in there somehow. But we learned in that video that Sasquatch was a civilization that existed even before human civilization existed. And they were quite established then. So I think that's kind of where we're going to start. I think this is kind of got to be like a picking up of some of those threads that we had in that video. So please go back and watch that video for sure. It's a great video. So going from that thread, I don't really know who to probe here for this one. I'm just going to bring in, since we had him on the last probe, Ingo Swann, because he is, I think the best remote viewer that ever lived. And I don't think we can go wrong bringing in Ingo Swann to help us for a little extra psychic juice.
Yeah, he's great and he's honored to be here. I can assure you, he feels very privileged to be talking with us. I did a whole channeling session with Ingo Swann before, where he said remote viewing, as it is now, in about 2 to 3 generations, will be dead. So it really is very important for those of you out there that are interested in knowing how to remote view, carrying that skill forward, to learn it now. You've got all the old sweats out there, Lynn Buchanan, Paul Smith, Joe McMoneagle. Guys, these guys are in their 80s. They're not going to be around forever.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, so the one thing that surprised me, that maybe shouldn't have surprised me, I guess this is probably a thought out there in the the cryptozoology, as they call it, field, that Sasquatch is a form of ancient man. So we got that in that probe. So I guess my first question would be, did all humans originate from Sasquatch? Is it the missing link, as they say?
Did all humans originate from Sasquatch? No.
Okay. All right. So I guess what I would want to do then is
throw your paper out.
No. I have a slide here. I have a picture here of just like, pictures of representations of the different forms of human, obviously not human beings because we're Homo sapiens, but the different, I don't know what you would call it, phyla of, split offs of, different human beings that well, they're not human beings, but different species that existed that were related to us in the past that they found fossil records of. So does Sasquatch belong to any of these different species? We have Homo habilis, Florensis, Erectus, Paranthropus, Hedelb, and Neanderthal. Just from
sorry, yes, I feel like some of those are splintered off from the original Sasquatch.
Some of them, but not all of them, huh?
Not all of them. No.
Okay. All right. So would it be, I mean, just like looking at these representations, I would guess it would either be like Homo habilis or Paranthropus, look, more ape-like.
No, the habilis, yes, for sure. Now, what I am getting from this probe already is that some people, some humans on the earth, have they evolved straight from Sasquatch? No. Okay. So are you saying that some humans, it was a progression? Did they start out as Sasquatch and then go into like plant life? And yes. Okay, now that's interesting to me. So some of us, do we have DNA, Sasquatch DNA? Yes, it's very, very small. Some of us do, where we came down here. So were Sasquatch here before plants? No. Were Sasquatch here before animals? No. So what came first? The chicken or the egg, right? No, what came first? The water came first, and then the trees and the grass and the foliage. And were there any animals living in there at the time? No. Then the evolution of animals happened. Now, this is going into millions and millions and millions of years.
Okay, so just along that line of thinking, so did life originate in the sea and then come out of the sea?
Did life originate? Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so we established that. That's the standard theory that exists now. Okay, but you mentioned something before that didn't. So you said that we started off as Sasquatch, but then we went to grass or plants. I don't understand that.
No, it's difficult. So we have evolved as humans. Sometimes when people come through for past life readings, they're like, you mean I was like a tree? And I'm like, yeah, your soul has been around for a long time. You were once a tree. So those of us that do have Sasquatch DNA in us, which is extremely, extremely minute, it looks like Sasquatch was an experiment, is what I'm getting. It was an early sort of, I don't know, avatar, or lack of a better word, I don't know, an early human experiment. And they were very primitive beings. They were actually a lot smaller than what they have grown into. They started out small, but then the souls, we as souls, we get to sort of design our lifetimes, right? So we go through this progression of evolution where we start out maybe as an amoeba, or we start out as a fish, and some of us had many, many lifetimes as birds and fish. That is nothing unusual. Foliage, and then we tend to evolve into sort of animals, and then we evolve into more sophisticated animals. Then we get into very sophisticated animals, like mammals with exceptional intelligence, like dolphins and apes, and those types of animals. And then from there we decided to come in as a human being. So somewhere back there, when there was just basic wildlife, foliage, and aquatic animals, a lot of reptiles, I'm saying where the dinosaurs had already gone at this point, then you start to see Sasquatch.
Right. Okay. Okay. So, and I guess my question is that we're talking about a physical evolution, but then also a spiritual evolution. So I'm guessing that our consciousness started off in things that, wouldn't necessarily have the same level of consciousness as us. And then as physical evolution moved forward, then our consciousness also increased kind of along with that, right? So that's kind of how it works.
Yes, absolutely. So what happens is, people ask me to probe their pets, right? Well, pets give really just, short survival answers. And they'll say, what is my pet thinking? I'm hungry. I'm thirsty. I love you. I want to go for a walk. It's very, very basic. When you start getting into things like, can you diagnose my pet? Can you ask my pet what is wrong with them? It's very rare that they know because they don't have that level of consciousness to know exactly what is going on inside if they're having organ issues or whatever, because the consciousness is very primitive, right? And that's the same with trees and grass and things like that. Although if you keep probing them, you can get a lot of information, but they're more energy centric beings, right? So they're picking up on the energy. Now what is so interesting about Sasquatch is that they actually can manipulate energy in a lot of ways, and they can disappear. They can have like energy zaps. I don't know if you've heard about the zapping before, where people have been zapped by Sasquatch, and it makes them very ill. So they know how to play with energy.
Yeah, okay. So I guess we're going to jump ahead to some of my other questions. Okay, since we're talking about that already. So yes, they do seem to have an ability to teleport, it seems, or at least the illusion that they do. So what is going on with them? Can we actually like grab a Sasquatch?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I've seen at least 4 of them.
All right, so you've actually seen, so maybe you can get a
Mhm.
connection with one of those beings.
Yes, and let me tell you, anybody that's going to look for Sasquatch, uh, you can feel it in your gut before you come across them. You know something isn't right. You have this terror in your gut. It's really, really bizarre. And I'm used to the feeling now. I haven't been out hunting for them for a few years,
Right.
simply because uh I took I took my
You have a
oldest
family,
son.
right? So now, so it's
Right. But I took my oldest son and it scared the whatever out of him, but because he came across them as well. But sometimes his friends, when they would come over for sleepovers, they take us for a Sasquatch hunt. Okay. And we would come across them because I know this particular spot close to where I live. It's probably 10 minutes away, where they are very active. And
wow.
it's called the wash, right? So it's basically, obviously if there's heavy rain, it's a road that's washed out by water. But when it's drier, you go and you sit down in the wash and you just park yourself there and you will come across them. You can smell them, but you can't see them. It is pitch black out there. You can't really see them until they're right up close, and they're down there hunting. Because what happens is, where I am in the wintertime, it's quite dry. So the animals try to come down to this particular spot for water. And that's how they hunt these animals a lot of times.
Mhm.
But yeah, you can smell them. They smell like a strange smell. You can hear them howling. It's unlike anything you've ever heard. You can hear them like communicating with one another.
Mm.
and you can sit down in this wash for hours and just listen to them, watch them. If you stay very still, I think they must have gotten used to me and a couple of my friends sitting down in the wash, because we were trying to do a show and we were recording them. They must have gotten used to us, and they must have probably read our energy, knew that I wasn't, we weren't a threat. So we actually came across them quite a lot.
Wow. Okay. Okay. All right. Do you have one of the beings with you?
Yes, I do.
So are they actually able to teleport themselves from one location to the other?
Are you actually able to teleport yourselves from one location to the other? Yes.
And that is like, how does that work? Do they just envision it and it happens, or is there some sort of ritual that they do or something, or magic? Or...
That, yeah. This is so cool, because I've always wondered how they did that. How do you do that? Because they know how to dissolve energy. And what I'm getting is they actually, do you shrink? They can shrink. They can make themselves change size. And I'm like, well, do you shrink to the point where you become invisible? Yes, they can shrink themselves. So, for instance, on one of our videos, I think I described where my friends had jumped off the front porch and chased one like fools, and they cornered one. He lives out here. I went to high school with him, and they cornered one, and he just vanished right in front of their eyes. Right at that point, did you shrink? Did Sasquatch shrink? Probably, most probably. So they can make themselves extremely small if they need to hide. But that takes expert knowledge at manipulating energy. They can also dissolve the energy and reappear somewhere else. So they're masters at manipulating energy.
Yeah, that boggles my mind. So, is it something that they like, when animals have instincts of how to do certain things, like, is it something that they're teaching each other how to do, or is it something they're born with? They just can just do it.
It's a learned behavior.
It's a learned behavior. So is it like taught from, I don't know, mother to son or father to daughter, or on that?
Something that you all teach. Yes, it takes a lot of training and practice.
Interesting. Okay. And oh, it seems like magic to me. You know what I mean? Like it's
Mhm.
defying what we know as physics, right?
Mhm. Now, I
Yeah.
have to ask this question. Why is it with your brain you can do this, but humans can't? Because there's a portion of their brain that is unlocked, that is sealed off to humans.
Hmm.
And
Well,
they needed it for survival, and they still need it for survival. Humans, although most of us would probably say it would be a nice feature to have, humans do not need it for survival, what they're trying to achieve here on the earth plane. Therefore, that portion of the brain, that capability, has been locked away.
and that is locked by source or like evolution or
Source. I'm going to ask Source, did you lock that? Yes, absolutely. Because it would allow people to just run away from their problems. That's a
that's
good
funny.
answer.
That's a good answer, yeah. Um, okay, so are there human beings like monks that can unlock this part of the brain?
Hmm.
Like Shaolin monks or who else?
They do have a more expanded consciousness, but again, it takes a lot of training.
Hmm.
And most humans don't have time for that. And that's something that, let me ask you, early humans, did we have that capability? I mean, we had a lot of capability of manipulating energy, but over time, as we become more sophisticated, things have become easier. Inventions come by,
Mm.
the wheel and horse and cart and things like that, we let go of that version of ourselves.
You read my mind, Liz. That was my next question.
Oh, I
Because
must be psychic.
you must be psychic, because that's kind of like my opinion is that every time we create a technology, we kind of lose some sort of we give up something, right? It might be
Mhm.
something minor. So, people, it's a common idea that maybe we were more psychic or more primal as we were hunter-gatherers, and we had more of a intuition in order to be able to hunt, right? And
Mhm.
as we create more technology and we get more sophisticated agriculture, so on, so on, we just naturally just kind of lose that ability. Just like the human body, when it's very energy efficient. So let's say that you have a hormone and you take a hormone like exogenously, right? Your body will actually stop producing that hormone or downregulate it because it's like, oh, we're getting it from here for free. Why do I have to produce it? Right. So kind of the same idea. Right. So we had these extraordinary abilities at one time, but as we create more technology, if you will, and skills, then it's kind of like conservation of energy in a way.
Mhm. Well, and as we saw from those metabolism probes, right? That's what human life is built on, conservation of energy.
Interesting.
So that falls in line with our very existence. So yes, I would say that's a hit on your theory.
Okay. Okay. So what's the range for their teleportation? Like, how far can they teleport?
A few miles.
Oh, wow. A few miles.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I'm just thinking of like, I'm trying to wrap my head around this. Like, how do they avoid being like, rematerializing into like a solid object, like a rock or a tree? Does that ever happen?
Oh, that's a good question. Have you ever actually rematerialized as something other than yourself? No.
Okay. I
That's
think
a
I've
good
watched
question,
I
though.
watched too many Star Trek episodes. Okay. I think that's the thing. Um, okay. So that there's some sort of mechanism that allows them to rematerialize and be safe, and not, ending up in a face of a rock or something. That's fascinating to me. It's like, yeah. Okay. Now, the other thing too is that they seem to have orbs. There seems to be orbs, some sort of orb phenomenon that is also
Mhm.
associated with them. And as we learned in that video with the planes, they're different from the orbs that we saw in that video from the plane. Those were extraterrestrial in origin. Where are these orbs coming from? Are they a phenomenon associated with Sasquatch, or
I think it's because, well, let me ask. Because they can manipulate energy, right? So that's basically what they are. I also feel, do you have contact with your ancestors? Yes, they do. So they can freely gather information from their ancestors as well, because spirits look like orbs. A lot of times people will see orbs in photographs. People will see orbs out of the corner of their eye.
hmm.
That's usually like one of your loved ones in spirit that is coming by to say hello to you, or maybe just something passing through where you are. I've had my fair share of encounters with good and bad orbs.
Hmm.
Um but yeah, so on the whole, there's a whole multitude of reasons, but they just know how to work energy.
Okay, so let's explore that. So one of the reasons the orbs could be there could be actually their ancestors in energy form. What
Absolutely.
what other like how else do they manifest, or what other use cases do they have?
So what I know from Sasquatch is they can put in energy barriers, right? Because they know that people want to hunt them. They know people want to capture them. They know that they are phenomena. Can you read minds? Absolutely, they can read minds. They
Hmm.
know who's a threat, who's not a threat. And they're so in tune with energy that they put in these energy barriers. So, for instance, when we came across them, and this is the one incident that I've talked about a few times where the one started army crawling to my car and I didn't know what to do. I mean, we had like a little switchblade in the car, right? And we're like, okay, this thing is now army crawling to the car. These things are not warm and fuzzy creatures by any stretch of the imagination. The power that they have is ridiculous. We had this one that was shaking a massive tree at us like it was nothing to them, like just almost as if it was like poking it with its finger. It's shaking this tree. The strength that they have is unbelievable. I knew that this thing was probably going to flip our car over. Okay. And I was driving. So luckily, I managed to put on, I just quick thinking, bright lights. I don't know where I got the insight. And I turned my wheel and put bright lights right on them. And that's what made the one that was army crawling to the car. He stood up next to my car, like literally, I've been a few feet away, and he took off running on two legs, right? This thing was huge. They're not small, and they smell so bad. So luckily we did that, but they put an energy barrier. So if they're in a particular area, they're foraging for food, they're hunting, they can put in sort of what we call in the police world a containment, right? What's a containment? Well, you know, when you're dealing with a diabolical situation, an event, you have to put in a containment of officers, right? So say you're going to serve, I'm just giving you a real world example so people can understand. Say you're going to serve a warrant, or you're going to capture somebody who you know is at a particular address and they are, you know, dangerous. Okay, so what are you going to do? Well, before you go knock on the door, you're going to put in a containment. You're going to have all bases covered. You're going to have people at the back. You're going to have people at the sides, right? You're going to have people on different roads waiting. So if they run out the back door, you're going to grab them. Most of the time, you'll have some officers right outside that back door too. So anyway, that's what I mean by containment. But instead of doing it with people, they do it with energy. And they'll put in energy barriers. So if somebody hits that energy barrier, it'll automatically report back to Sasquatch that somebody's coming, you know, coming into that barrier. Now, these barriers can be quite large. So if somebody hits that barrier, they automatically read who this is this person a threat, what their intentions are, because they have that capability, and then they'll react. We actually caught them off guard. I feel that we did maybe hit the barrier, but for whatever reason, they weren't paying attention because we startled them. But also, they were in an area which is very, very quiet. There's no houses out there. There's just, you know, some farms. And you could tell by their startled reaction that we had scared them. But obviously, they knew that we weren't some sort of threat. The other problem was when they were shaking the tree at us, right? Most people, that scares the hell out of them and they take off going in the other direction. We didn't do that because we had seen this before. So we weren't scared of them in that way at first. You know, okay, you're throwing rocks. Okay, you're shaking a tree. Like, we've been through that before many times. I've been out looking for them a lot. And I always came across them. So that didn't bother us. And when that didn't phase us, that's when he started army crawling to the car. Now that was scary because it was like he was going to pop up right by the passenger side window, which the guy sitting in the passenger seat was 6'8" anyway. It was his radio show. And I was like, won't they think you're his cousin? Which he didn't find that very funny because all he had was a switchblade. And he's like, I don't know what to do. But anyway, once the Sasquatch got up on 2 feet and ran up the hill, he said, you know, it was drive, drive, and then we panicked and got out of there. But they have these energy barriers. They feed them information. And that's where, you know, I think humans do have that too. Not as sophisticated as Sasquatch, but I do believe we have that. You know, I was just speaking with somebody the other day, a very, very good friend of mine who is an undercover detective. And I'm like, how do people not notice that you're watching them? You know, we do have those senses. They're just not as sophisticated as Sasquatch.
Right. Right. And we don't know that we have them, so we wouldn't even bother to exercise that ability, even though it like could be latent.
Well, this is something that is necessary for their absolute survival, right?
Right.
Because what I'm getting is that they have been on the earth plane far too long. They should have been off the earth plane many, many, many thousands of years ago. They have defied the odds by surviving. So that leads me to another question. Do you have a soul? So I'm asking Sasquatch itself, and it's telling me no, but it may not be aware that it has a soul. So let's ask Ingo. Does Sasquatch have a soul? Yes, they do, but I feel like it's some soul from a different planet or galaxy.
Okay.
That's
All
what
right.
I'm doing.
So okay, so a different soul from a different planet or galaxy. So in the probes that we've done so far, I kind of almost get the impression that like here on Earth, it's like we're under the soul kind of evolution thing, but it seems like every time we view outside of the Earth plane, nobody else is on the same sort of reincarnation soul cycle thing. So can you ask Ingo, is this reincarnation soul cycle thing going on anywhere else in this universe, or has it before?
It has before in other universes, but no, we are the only source created beings that have our souls are special, right? So we go through the reincarnation cycle. I'm saying, does Sasquatch go through the reincarnation cycle? No, they
Oh,
don't.
okay, so there's a difference there. So they have a soul from a different plane of existence, whether that's another planet or galaxy, but it doesn't necessarily mean they were in a reincarnation cycle.
No, this is very strange to me because I'm like, do they work for the dark? And they don't work for the dark.
Okay. And so how did that soul did their physical beings come from another plane at some point, or another planet or galaxy, or just their soul?
The physical beings come from another plane or galaxy at some point. No, they started here and they started by source, but I feel, and I'm saying, but they were started, okay, so they were started by source, but then source says, no, this isn't working. So source says, we're taking them off of the earth plane, right? And they were actually supposed to be wiped out by disease.
Oh, okay.
However, something infiltrated to save them as a species. And I don't know what it is, to be honest. I don't know what questions to ask, but something has infiltrated to ensure their survival as a species here on the earth plane. So they should
Okay.
have been wiped out a long time ago.
So then that fast forwards again to another question that I have. And we may have to cut this one short. May have to leave a cliffhanger because we're coming up on 30 minutes here.
Mm-hmm.
But does Sasquatch have any relationship to the off-world intelligences that we have here now? Because I've just seen a lot of like stories of like they're always there's sightings of both of them seeming to be in the same area at the same time. And maybe we'll take this question in the next video and we'll pause it here.
Okay, well, there you go. If you want more, you'll have to join the Patreon, patreon.com/remote viewing and beyond. Just remember, if you're not a Patreon subscriber, you are not seeing all the videos. In the past week, I have probably put out 20 videos that are unlisted, so they're not for public viewing. All right, we'll stop this one here. Wow, cliffhanger.